All right, are we feeling good? Are we ready for this, everyone? So I'd like to start by introducing myself. My name is Bryna Marcus. I'm with the Nevada Outdoor Business Coalition, and I'd like to thank everybody for joining us this evening. I'd also like to recognize some special guests we have here. We've got Ashante McGee with the Congresswoman Lee's office. We also have Zach Zaragoza with the Senator Cortez Masto's office joining us. Thank you very much for taking time out this evening. In the fall of 2020, the Nevada Outdoor Business Coalition and Get Outdoors Nevada partnered with BBC Research in Denver to help determine how the pandemic was affecting the outdoor recreation economy here in Nevada. The result was a study that contains extensive social and economic data on outdoor businesses and public land visitation, and how patterns of use and economic activity have changed since the pandemic began. More than just data, the study features in-depth interviews with 16 Nevada businesses and offers recommendations for leaders and legislatures on how to support outdoor businesses and the lands they use. I'd like to begin by introducing Colin Robertson, the Director of Nevada's Division of Outdoor Recreation.
Thank you so much, Bryna. This is a tremendous opportunity to dig into some really important data and information about Nevada's outdoor recreation economy. Before we do that, I want to make public thanks to Get Outdoors Nevada and to publicly welcome Rachel Berggren, the new Executive Director of Get Outdoors Nevada, a really important partner for the Division of Outdoor Recreation and a really key leader in the outdoor recreation nonprofit space in the state. I also want to acknowledge the important work of the Nevada Outdoor Business Coalition and their effort to drive forward into a relatively unknown territory to dig into this much more localized data about the outdoor economy in Nevada. It's important work, and this is the beginning of that work, and it's work that we hope will continue to evolve over the course of the next several years. I also want to acknowledge Michael Verdone and BBC Research and Consulting, who has contracted with the NBOBC to do this work and to tell really important stories about small businesses and large both in the state of Nevada that operate in the outdoor recreation space. To give that a little bit of context, I wanted to try to just explain, I think, where the importance of this study lies. As some of you may know, in the fall of 2020, the Bureau of Economic Analysis Outdoor Recreation Satellite Account released a new set of data about Nevada's outdoor recreation economy from 2019. And that was really interesting and important data. And I'm going to just summarize it briefly here for you for a couple of moments. Nationally, that data revealed that $459.8 billion of current dollar gross domestic product in the United States was due to the outdoor economy. And that represents 2.1% of the national GDP. That's a significant component of the overall American economy. In Nevada, the data reveals that $5.5 billion of the state's economic impact is due directly to outdoor recreation. This represents 3.1% of the state's GDP and also represents just shy of 59,500 jobs, according to that BEA data. That's a significant amount of jobs and a very important overall piece of the pie for Nevada's economic diversification efforts led across the state by the Governor's Office of Economic Development and the regional development authorities, and the important work of organizations like the Nevada Outdoor Business Coalition. But this study, conducted by BBC Research and Consulting, delves into the very local level of detail and the impacts, positive and less so, for businesses across the state in terms of COVID-related impacts on their businesses. And we all know the stories, sort of anecdotally, of people's significant impacts on small businesses, especially across the state of Nevada. And the outdoor businesses in the state were not immune from that either. And one of the important things that this study really reveals is the level of that impact and the significance of it. From Sports World in Ely to Eclipse Pizza in Reno and Bindlestiff Tours in Las Vegas, all the small businesses in the outdoor recreation economy in Nevada experienced impacts. And this study starts to help tell that story at the very local level in a way that adds color to the national data and helps us to delve deeper into the detail of Nevada's communities and the small businesses and large businesses both that support the outdoor economy in Nevada. I am very bullish on the outdoor recreation economy for the state and the overall economy of Nevada diversifying to include more of the outdoor recreation industry as we go forward. And that's a really important part of the work of the Division of Outdoor Recreation, where it landed in the Department of Conservation and Natural Resources. I want to also just plug quickly for those on this Zoom to note that the statewide comprehensive outdoor recreation plan, or SCORP, public survey is live at parks.nv.gov. That's an important survey that helps to guide federal investment of land and water conservation fund dollars in the state, which also goes to support the outdoor economy that this webinar is about this evening. Thank you so much for having me, and I'm going to pass it off now to Michael Verdone at BBC Research and Consulting.
Great, thank you so much. I'm going to share my screen here so I can share my presentation with everybody. Great. Well, first of all, I'd like to say thank you so much for joining us tonight. It's exciting to be able to present this research after we've been working hard on it for many months. I want to talk just a little bit before we dive into a lot of the detail about what the outdoor recreation economy is. So the outdoor recreation economy is made up of thousands of businesses across almost every industry in the economy. And these are businesses like gas stations that sell us fuel so we can drive to our favorite trailhead. They could be a boat manufacturer that produces a houseboat or a canoe that we may use. It might even be the business that rents us the houseboat at Lake Mead when we take a vacation. It's the businesses that rent equipment, sell apparel, and even do maintenance on that equipment and apparel. It's the hotels and restaurants where we sleep and eat after a long day outside. In short, it's really every business that makes outdoor recreation possible and all the interconnections along the way. So in terms of employment, as Colin said, the outdoor recreation economy in Nevada employs about 60,000 people statewide, and that's according to the most recent data from the BEA in 2019. When we break that down into sectors, we see that retail trade is the largest sector in terms of employment. It employs just a hair short of 18,000 people statewide. Accommodation and food services, the second largest source of employment in the outdoor recreation economy, employing a bit over 14,000 folks. Arts, entertainment, and recreation, which includes businesses that include performance events, exhibition sites, and historical, educational, and cultural sites, employs a little under 12,000 people. And transportation and warehousing and local government are the other industries that make up the top 5 industries in the outdoor recreation economy. Together, the 5 largest sectors account for almost 90% of all the employment in outdoor recreation. So these 5 sectors are the most important when we think about the outdoor recreation economy. One other fact I wanted to point out. So just to add some context to this, statewide, the outdoor recreation economy accounts for about 3% of the total employment in the state and also about 3% of the total economic output in the state. And just to give you some additional context to that, so the state of Nevada's economy grows between 2 and 4% per year. So the contribution of the outdoor rec economy to the state overall is equivalent to basically all the economic growth the state experiences on a typical year. So in other words, if the outdoor rec economy were to go missing suddenly, it would be as if the state had no economic growth anymore. The economy would just sort of stay the same. So that's just sort of contextualize the importance of this economy and the activity that it creates. One nice thing about the BEA data is that it allows us to look not only at the contributions of the outdoor rec economy by sector, but we can also look at it by activity. And when we do that, we see that local trips, these are trips under 50 miles from a person's house, are the largest source of economic activity within the outdoor rec economy. That's followed by guided tours and outfitted travel, boating and fishing, festival sporting events and concerts, construction and gaming areas. There are many other activities that feed into the outdoor rec economy, but those are the primary drivers of economic output. Now, the entire economy is really underpinned by all of the public land in Nevada. They are the main input into the outdoor rec economy. It's people's ability to go and interact outside on places that they love and cherish, or new places that they've never been and want to see that really attract people to the outdoors in general. Nevada is blessed with an abundance of this public land. So about 87% of the land in the state is public and open to recreation with some limited exceptions. And this includes public lands like national conservation areas. So I'm sure people around the Las Vegas area are very familiar with Red Rock. People on the other side of the state near Reno are probably familiar with Black Rock Desert. There are national forests, like the Humboldt-Toyoba National Forest and Inyo National Forest. National wildlife refuges, there are 4. I believe the Desert National Wildlife Refuge is the largest in the US. Several national monuments like Gold Butte, Tully Springs Fossil Beds, Basin and Range National Monuments, 2 federally recognized tribal areas, Pyramid Lake and Walker River, many state, county, and municipal lands as well. So that includes 24 state parks and hundreds of other sites managed by county and municipal governments. So I want to talk a little bit about how the outdoor recreation economy has been impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic. So recall that a lot of the impact in terms of the economic output in the outdoor recreation economy is driven by local trips. There's been a lot of data collected to look at the impact of the COVID pandemic in various ways. And so one of the ways that we've looked at this, at the impacts, is in terms of how people have changed the way they spend their time. And so one of the groups that's collecting data looked at how people are spending their time outside of the house. And what they found is that generally people, of course, are spending much more time indoors. So when they looked at this across different places, they saw that in total, people are spending about 13% less time outside of their house as compared to before the pandemic began. In terms of their time spent at retail establishments and restaurants, they're spending about 22% less time. But when they looked at the time people are spending in parks, they found actually they're spending about 35% less time overall. And as you can see from that chart, the time people spend outside is changing from the beginning of the pandemic to the end. Of course, as we got into the fall and the winter, the time spent outside the home decreased, had sort of recovered over the summer months. But compared to the beginning of the pandemic, it was much higher. This also translated into lower visitor arrivals in the state. So the light blue line shows visitor arrivals in 2018 and 2019, and the dark blue line shows those arrivals through late 2019 and through September 2020. And of course, you can see at the beginning of the pandemic, late February, early March, visitor arrivals dropped to under 1 million visits per month. Those recovered throughout the year, but to a much lower level than their baseline conditions. So there are many fewer people visiting the state compared to normal. I guess I have, sorry. So the combination of less time spent outside the house and fewer visitor arrivals is starting to show up in visitation to public lands. And so this slide shows visitation to national parks, state parks, and national conservation areas in Nevada. Again, the light blue line shows a baseline condition, so 2018 through 2019, and the dark blue line shows the conditions from late 2019 through September 2020. And what you can see is that as we got into the spring months of 2020 and through the summer and early fall, visitation to the parks, conservation areas in Nevada were much lower than what we would have expected compared to baseline conditions. And so that time spent at home, the lack of visitors is starting to translate into fewer people going outside and recreating outdoors. So what does this mean for the outdoor recreation economy? Well, one of the primary impacts is that with fewer people going to outdoor sites, fewer people recreating, there's just less spending. And of course, businesses depend on that spending. So we see that restaurants and hotels have seen about a 20% decrease compared to baseline conditions, but the entertainment and recreation sector has seen about a 57% decrease overall. Interestingly, retail trade is up about 6.5% overall compared to the baseline. And that's borne out through a lot of the case studies that we saw as well. Of course, in the beginning of the pandemic, spending was down as people couldn't really go out of their homes, but as businesses were able to make their establishments safer for people to come, those people did come, and they spent money purchasing things like bicycles and kayaks and other apparel that made it or allowed them to get outside and recreate. So the spending's not consistent across the board, but I think the overall trend is that there's less spending in the outdoor rec economy. That also decreased, of course, business revenue. And so when we look at the amount of revenue that businesses received, we see that retail and transportation is about 7% down from baseline conditions, but leisure and hospitality are almost 60% down from their baseline. And overall, the economy's lost about 30% of its business revenue. So this tells the tale that leisure and hospitality, which includes restaurants and hotels, are seeing some of the brunt of the impacts of the pandemic. And then if we look at the employment, so of course, all of this lack of spending, the lack of business revenue eventually leads to reductions in labor, and that leads to unemployment. And so this just shows where those job losses have been mostly concentrated. And unsurprisingly, they've shown up in accommodation and food services. Those have been the businesses that are primarily hit hardest across the country, but also in Nevada. Local government is also a large source of job loss in the state. So they've lost a lot of tax revenue because there's not as much sales tax coming in. And in some cases, they've had to just have wholesale reductions in staff. I know in Colorado, where I live, I was working with the county, and they had to lay off 20% of their staff across every department to compensate for their lost tax revenue. So local government is a hard hit sector, but accommodation and food services obviously is much harder hit than others. So what we did, we wanted to see what the impacts were on the outdoor recreation economy in terms of unemployment, labor income. And so we took these unemployment rates for the state as a whole, and we applied them to the industries in the outdoor recreation economy to get some baseline estimates of what the impacts have been by sector. And so what we saw is that overall, if we look at the outdoor rec economy, the baseline conditions were that there were about 59,500 jobs. We estimated that about 14% of jobs in accommodation and food services have been lost, 11.5% in local government. The other percentage is shown in this third column here. And when we apply those unemployment rates to the number of jobs in the outdoor recreation economy, we see that overall, we think there's about 3,566 fewer jobs in the outdoor recreation economy as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. That translates into a lost income of about $161.5 million for workers in the outdoor rec economy, and a reduction in output of about $283 million per year. So in other words, if nothing happened and these conditions persisted, that would be lost from the economy every year. So just a couple case studies here. And these are discussed in more detail in the report. I just took some summaries out just to show you what businesses were saying. So the first one is from Gear Hut, and Gear Hut is a used gear store primarily focused on consignment sales in Reno, Nevada. They said the company's top priority coming out of the pandemic is to use its resources efficiently and maintain a diversified customer base to try to adapt to changing circumstances without missing a beat. We also talked to Bindlestiff Tours, and they're a small group outdoor tour outfitter that services national parks. And they think that this current moment presents an opportunity for outdoor recreation economy and small businesses to strengthen their existing partnerships and appeal to new customers, especially local customers. So that's a trend that we've seen talking to many businesses in the case studies, is that Their customer demographics have shifted to be much more local than they were before the pandemic began, and they're trying to change some of their practices to cater to that changing trend. We talked to Eclipse Pizza. They're a small independent gourmet pizza restaurant in Reno, and they said looking forward, they're hoping to get back to customer and community engagement. That's a core part of their business because it's so much more than just handing someone a pizza. That in terms of positive changes, they've streamlined their processes and menu items, but they're looking forward to getting back to the weekly specialty pizza that's a part of their brand and vibe. And we talked to Tonopah Main Street, which is a 501c3 nonprofit focused on economic revitalization. And they said that business owners are optimistic that a full economic recovery will be underway by June 2021, and that the town's central location and successful marketing are central to its success. So again, these are just snippets. The report goes much more into detail about the businesses and the impacts they faced and the ways that they're planning on coming out of this even stronger than they went into the pandemic. So in terms of summaries and recommendations, we have three. The first is to protect and fund public land. So as I said, public land really is the primary input to the outdoor recreation economy. Without it, these businesses that rely on this land really won't be able to function. So it's important to keep public lands open and accessible, but also to fund their upkeep and maintenance so that they stay in good condition and that people want to go there. They're places that are pristine and fun for people to visit. We also need to support outdoor recreation businesses. So one of the themes that came out throughout our interview case studies was that the payroll protection program was very helpful to almost all of the businesses that we spoke to. And this is true even of the businesses that have seen many of their customers come back. But we know that many businesses haven't yet seen their customers come back. And so I think it's important to continue directing financial support to businesses in need so that they can make it through the end of the pandemic, because we need all of the businesses in the recreation economy to exist in order for outdoor recreation to sustain itself. So if you end up in a situation where you have public land, but you don't have the hotel and accommodations or the restaurants near that public land, it's really hard for people to visit those areas and engage the other businesses that are part of the economy. So unless we keep some of the more struggling businesses going until their visitors are able to come back, we're not going to be able to have a full recovery. So I think it's really important to direct that financial support where it's needed. And that includes the outdoor recreation workers. So the outdoor recreation economy depends on its talented and motivated workforce. Many of these workers, they work in this field because they're passionate about it. But some of them are struggling and they need financial support like their businesses to make it through the end of the pandemic so that they can come back even stronger and continue to support this amazing dynamic economy that makes Nevada a very fun and rich place to visit. And that's the conclusion of my presentation. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Michael. We truly appreciate you and your team's hard work on this and getting the final report that you've produced to us. And just so that everybody knows who's watching the Zoom, we will be sending out a copy of that report. You can also find the full report on nvobc.org. But thank you again, because it's been a pleasure working with you, and the results that you've produced are a treat to read.
Thank you.
So we do have another guest here this evening, Tim Helian. He's actually an executive committee member for the Nevada Outdoor Business Coalition, and he was also a participant in the study. So Tim, thank you for joining us. If you have a couple of minutes to kind of give us a brief rundown on how the experience was with you and your company at Laughing Planet.
Bottom line, we got nuked. Yeah, so restaurant stuff, as Michael mentioned, the restaurant industry is one of the hardest hit in regards to the pandemic and its fallout. And we certainly have had that experience as well. I've been part of 5 different restaurant projects in last 35 years in Nevada. And our business was sort of actually directly built out of the old Outdoor Retailer Association meetings that used to happen in Reno, in which some of the guys came in my place back then and decided to do something like it and get out of the retail business. But so yeah, it's been an incredible challenge. we immediately had to shut down for a month. And we have 2 restaurants in Reno. One of them's located by the university. And 80% of our business up there was walk-in traffic from the university. And when that shut down, we stayed closed for 5 months, our choice. Since then, we're kind of back in action. The university is seeing some activity, and our other location is pretty centrally located in a pretty active part of Reno, and has been doing okay. There's a lot of different numbers out there as far as the impact in the restaurant business, but to include all that have closed, it's kind of at times has been as bad as a 40% decrease nationally in the restaurant industry. We've done okay. Of our 2 stores, one of them, the one by the university, is down by 50%. The one in the other part of town, Midtown, we call it, is down about 26%. We've chosen, although there is an opportunity to have 35% occupancy right now, we're playing it pretty conservative by choice, and still dealing with only to go and curbside service and deliveries. In that we're, as long as we can stay afloat, we're gonna protect our employees from as much as we can. It's still, restaurants are kind of a petri dish as far as the ease of passing on this kind of virus. You take a mask off to eat, you take a mask off to drink, you look at your server and exit, speak. So it's tough. So we're staying close, but we've been able to, now that we're open again, we're probably back to, and have been, the one we were able to open in May, and the one by the university we opened in the fall when classes started, although it's really about 20% of the population is on campus. But we're back up to about 70% of our workforce from a year ago. Well, a year and a month ago, because it was right about now things started getting weird, which has been great. So we're able to employ people and keep that bit going. But the general thing has been really tough to keep going. Yet it's a fun business to be in, and I think we're going to make it. I think that's what I got to say.
Well, thank you, Tim. Again, I do appreciate you participating, not only tonight, but in the survey. It really was helpful to get information from you on the restaurant business. And I'm glad to hear that you've got your employees coming back. I'm sure they're excited to be there as well.
Thank you.
So now I would like to introduce Verna Mendez. She's with the Nevada Conservation League. Welcome.
Hi, thank you for having me. And thanks everyone that's able to join the call. I won't take up too much time. I just wanted to highlight a couple of things. As you've heard on the call so far, the Nevada outdoor business economy is super important to the state, and one of the main drivers for our outdoor business economy is the preservation of our public lands. There was actually a poll that was done recently by the Colorado College, and what it found was that 71% of Nevadans support direct funding to ensure adequate access to parks and other natural areas, and 90% agree that state budgets should find money to protect more lands. So this just shows that in Nevada, people really do care about public lands. We care about access to the outdoors. And because we care so much, it's really important that you all have a voice and that you all share your thoughts with your elected officials or with any other person that will listen to all of the issues that you want to tell them about. So because of that, the Nevada Conservation League, along with other partner organizations, are going to host an event in mid-March. It's called Conservation Lobby Days. Typically, we take a bus up to Carson City and we talk to our elected officials about conservation issues in Nevada. Due to the pandemic and the legislature being close to the public at the moment, we won't be able to do that. But what we have done instead is we're going to have a series of 4 nightly events spread over 4 days. It's going to be about an hour and a half each. And these are going to be your opportunity to A, talk to your legislators, but also B, be able to learn about issues that you care about. And I would highlight that on Tuesday, there's going to be a segment about conservation and public lands. So if you want to know more about conservation and public lands in Nevada, and specifically how these issues impact us on a federal and local level, please feel free to join us. I will drop the link to register in the chat. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Appreciate that. And thank you for putting the link in the chat, because that will help everybody get there. Before we begin the Q&A portion of the evening, I would like to take the opportunity to introduce the new Executive Director of Get Outdoors Nevada. Thank you for joining us, Rachel Berggren. Welcome to the conversation.
Thanks so much, Bryna, and thanks to all of the attendees and the panelists tonight. So yeah, thank you for this opportunity. I just want to introduce myself as Rachel Berggren. I have recently joined the Get Outdoors Nevada team as our new executive director. Many of you may know my predecessor, Mauricia Baca. Mauricia left very big shoes for me to fill, and I'm honored and delighted to have the opportunity to lead Get Outdoors Nevada into the future. My main task today is to pivot from our speakers and invite questions from members of the public and the press who may be joining us today. But before I do that, I do want to take this opportunity very briefly to reinforce the commitment of Get Outdoors Nevada to supporting the continued growth of the state's outdoor recreation economy, and specifically our important work with the Nevada Outdoor Business Coalition. This study that we've learned about tonight and our ongoing work are made possible with financial support from our generous donors who share our commitment to preserving Nevada's public lands, encouraging the public to enjoy the state's diverse outdoor spaces, and supporting Nevada's outdoor businesses. So we know, and we learned from the report that Michael shared with us earlier, that outdoor businesses facilitate and enrich outdoor experiences, and they're critical to supporting outdoor recreation. Or put another way, or more simply, outdoor businesses make getting outdoors more accessible, more enjoyable, and more memorable. So Get Outdoors Nevada needs our outdoor business partners in order to meet our mission. And we will always be champions of the Nevada Outdoor Business Coalition and the outdoor business community at large. So we're really, really delighted to be part of this community and of presenting this report tonight. And I want to thank all of our presenters again, and all of you who are attending tonight for your support of our work and for joining us today. So at this time, we are very happy to take questions for our panelists. So there are a couple of us who are going to be watching the various inboxes. There is a Q&A function on Zoom. You should be able to locate that, and that is a place where you can type in and post a question that you might have for one of our panelists. If you know who you want to direct it to, make a note of that. Otherwise, we'll try to sort that out. If you can't find the Q&A, you can also use the chat feature as well. And if you're joining us via Facebook, there's some people are, you can put your questions in the comment section, and we'll do our best to kind of keep track of all of those different sources of questions that may be coming in and answer them as best we can. We do want to wrap up tonight by, I think, about 1:45. So, and we want to be respectful of everybody's time. So that does give us just shy of, I think, about 10 minutes to address some questions. So we'll start watching for those to come in. Thank you so much.
I might just start with one if I could. This is Colin Robertson from the Division of Outdoor Recreation, just to understand from the interviews that Michael and team conducted with business owners and organizations across the state, what were what was some of the feedback that you received about how, what those businesses identified as some of their greatest need for support or help?
Yeah, I would say, I mean, it probably just goes back to largely financial help because a lot of them are short on revenue if they haven't seen their customers return. And you can only sustain yourself so long without any revenue unless you're going to try to plug the shortfall with borrowed funds, which I think many business owners are pretty loath to do, especially when they don't have a source of revenue to pay those funds back. But the other was having more clarity from the state and federal level about what the guidelines are to manage public health inside of their own businesses. So I think a lot of them felt like in the beginning, they were really unsure how to respond and how to react and what to do. And so they're just looking for that certainty and clarity about what it is they need to be doing and what the guidelines are going to be.
So I see a couple of questions coming in that are sort of related. One attendee was asking about whether or not there's any information on how or when outdoor trips will start going back up. And I think another way of asking that came from another attendee about projections for what 2021 might be looking like. So I'm not sure if that might be something, Michael, you could address, or possibly even you, Colin.
Yeah, I mean, I can take a stab at it. My answer is that I don't think anyone has any idea, frankly. I mean, we're all just sort of wondering what the future looks like going forward. I know that there's been sort of an imbalance in the recovery in terms of visitation. Like some national parks, like in Zion, I know for personal experience was seeing record visitation throughout the fall and into the early winter. And I'm sure there's other places where visitation is well below average. So, you know, I think what's hard is to know whether those trends persist, if that change in visitation is going to sort of last a while, where we'll see some places really busy and others not really busy at all, or if things will sort of return back to their levels pre-pandemic. I don't really think anyone knows what's going to happen just yet.
I can maybe add a little color to that as well, which is that it really depends on the kind of trips, I think. One of the sectors nationwide that was affected most severely in the outdoor business world were guides and outfitters throughout the darkest hours of the pandemic. Guides and outfitters were affected deeply. But at the same time, for example, this weekend, there is a very limited participation trail run at Red Rock Canyon National Conservation Area and an upcoming mountain bike race, which have achieved a very approval to operate with very low numbers and safe sort of safety protocols in place that are pretty stringent to ensure safety. And I think a lot of land managers are feeling optimistic that given the state's overall numbers, that kind of thing is likely to continue to be possible as we return sort of to some semblance of normalcy.
I'm not sure if maybe Tim or perhaps Colin a bit more. So there was a question that came from Mike Shoro from the Review Journal, and he refers to the comment you made, Colin, about being bullish on the outdoor rec economy. And so it might be interesting to hear a little bit more from you, Colin, on why you feel that way. And then I guess, Tim, as a business owner or others who are closer to that kind of work, if you might have some insight on that, why you might be feeling optimistic or perhaps not.
Thanks for the question, Mike. I feel strongly that Nevada's outdoor economy is, in the long run, going to be, I think, a very healthy opportunity for small businesses to grow and develop. Part of the reason that I feel that way has to do with what I was remarking on at the beginning, which is that The 2018 data from the Bureau of Economic Analysis showed a $4.1 billion economic impact in the state. And the 2019 data it grew to a $5.5 billion economic impact. That does not address the very real and considerable effects on very small businesses and communities across the state who have suffered tremendously as a result of the COVID impacts. However, I think as we kind of come back to a place where a more fully robust economy is churning again, I think a lot of the outdoor businesses in Nevada are going to be prepared to benefit from the increased engagement with outdoor recreation that we've all seen as a result of the pandemic. And I think that's an important consideration with regard to public lands, because outdoor recreation is, among other things, one of the things that it is kind of a business case for conservation, because the stewardship and conservation of our public lands is what makes that outdoor recreation economy a possibility.
Got it. Thank you.
Hey, it was, you offered me an opportunity to say something.
I sure did. Go for it.
I just got to say, I'm just I'm not optimistic guy. I have to be because my survival depends on it. And I just feel real confident about us getting through the pandemic. It feels very much as if there's a light at the end of the tunnel. And I feel confident as an outdoor enthusiast that we live in a state that is a playground, and opportunities are incredible from anything you like to do outside, from OHV exploration to kayaking to fishing to hunting to rock climbing, picket. I just did a quick tour, 2-day tour of the state, driving for whatever reason I did. And I had to eat at restaurants, and you go to places in Elko or Battle Mountain or Austin, and I'd say they've gotten really kicked hard in that. A lot of their business is from people passing through. And I get to talk to one guy in a restaurant about it, secret handshake restaurant guy, but his experience was that it's pretty much all locals now. And so the business that they would see from people venturing out into the state for various means of activities, they're just not seeing. But again, really feels like there's a light at the end of the tunnel. And so that I'm feeling pretty good about it. We're going to stick it out.
That's awesome. So glad to hear that, Tim. And we're going to be here to support you and other businesses in that way. So I really like trying to land on a positive note. So thanks for that, Tim. But I'm also wondering if we might try to answer this question, and maybe that'll have to be our last question. I'll look to the other panelists to let me know if they agree with me on that. But this one, I really like it. The question is, if someone were looking to start a new innovative outdoor business in the state of Nevada, what are some good places to find resources for information to help them with that, to support them in that endeavor?
I can start. I think that's a tremendous question. I agree. And a great, it helps to articulate some of the bullishness too. I think a great place to start is working with the small business development centers across the state. They have really tremendous and dedicated staff who are able, ready, and willing to help advise entrepreneurs and starting up business owners. And that's a really important asset that we have statewide for people. The Nevada Outdoor Business Coalition is a great resource of business owners and advisors and people who can help as well. I'll stop there and see if other people have thoughts.
Okay, I don't see or hear anybody jumping in. So I'm going to look to you, Bryna, to confirm for me that maybe we're out of time. And so we probably need to wrap it up. So I might just pop it back over to you, Bryna, to bring us over the finish line, so to speak. Okay.
I'd like to thank everybody for joining us. I would like to echo on what Colin said. I feel we are in a positive momentum forward for the outdoor recreation economy in Nevada. Having a chance to really take advantage of everything that Nevada has to offer our locals, I think it's opened their eyes to see that there are things they can do just in their backyard, and that has really benefited the outfitters and the retailers and all of the outdoor recreation enthusiasts in general. So again, if you would like to get the report, it will be emailed over to everybody who has joined us this evening. You can find it on nvobc.org. I'm hoping before the end of the week. And if you have any questions, you can reach me at info@nvobc.org. And I look forward to hearing from everybody. Any questions that you didn't get answered, we will try and address those in some way and get the information out to you. Thank you again for spending your time with us this evening. We do appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bryna.